Good morning, all my fans. It is almost 7 a.m. and I am at a meeting at Perkins. It's the board meeting for Rotary. I love Rotary. Part of going back to college and not working is that I probably will not be able to be a part of Rotary anymore because I won't have an income to pay the dues. But I do love being a part of it. The people do great stuff, all kinds of different great stuff for the community, so it's nice. I also would like to point out my necklace today. My niece Chloe made me this beautiful necklace. So super cute. I just dropped stuff off to my son yesterday. He asked if he can come to his grandpa's house, and I said yes, and then he said, can I sleep over? And so I'm like, yes. So on his own, he created a play date with his grandpa, and so I just dropped off some sleepover stuff. I'll get him in the morning. But my dad has the alcoholic dementia, and so sometimes he's okay and sometimes he's not. But no matter what, my son loves him, and like he actually kind of helps take care of him when he's with him, like just to make sure he stays organized and stuff. And little David just loves being with his grandpa, so that's really awesome, and it makes me proud that my son's gentle and loving. And then also that in parenting, I often don't do the right or the best thing, but I've been able to manage healthy enough boundaries with my dad that instead of his alcoholism and his dementia being a source of pain for my son, he's able to love him and maintain those boundaries himself. And so he's like learned from stuff. So that's great. It's great to see my son and his relationship with his grandpa. So I'll tell you a little about me today. Although born in Elkhart, when I was 21, I had moved to Phoenix, and I finished my college degree, and I met who we call Big David, my son's father, and we got married and had a child. And then in 2005, I moved back to Elkhart with my family. Big David and I are not together now because of immigration law, which I'll talk about another day. What I was going to talk about though is when I first moved back, I went around and like dropped off notes, flyers, pieces of paper, and all the downtown offices that I could be a translator. And 2 years later, this place called Center for Community Justice, their counselor called me to translate for the counseling sessions. That was the first time I'd ever heard of restorative justice. And so the idea of restorative justice made perfect sense to me on a secular level, not a faith-based level. And although restorative justice is the way Native, Indigenous cultures addressed wrongdoing, it is the kind of way we practice it now, and the theories we read now are out of usually the Mennonite faith originally. And so justice and theology kind of run hand in hand. But so I believed in and liked restorative justice and related to it in this secular way. And there's times in your life where you're like, holy crap, like all these things happened, and it seems like it was maybe like meant to be, or I don't always talk too much about faith or religious stuff, but like if you're following God's path, you end up where you're supposed to be. And so I'm going to back up to when I was 16, 17 or so. I did like hippie drugs with my friends, and some of my friends broke into houses back then. I had a pretty nasty childhood, and so 16, 17, I'm like running away, and my friends are doing crime and whatever. So during this time though, I was pretty into like the hippies, like we all listened to Grateful Dead and traveled around with them whenever we could and stuff like that. So the idea behind, or one of the kind of philosophies of that, is this idea of peace and love and joy. And so during this time of my life, like, this is the kind of framework I'm functioning from to some degree, and coming from a home of chaos and lies and, you know, not peace. And I just realized during that time that I would much rather be honest up front. And even no matter how hard it is, it's easier to be honest up front than to deal with all the crap you have to deal with when you choose to not be honest. And so 16, 17 years old, I just decided to start being honest and accountable for whatever choices I made in life. And that decision at that age, like, it stuck with me for the rest of my life. And a big part was, like, I watched my parents' dishonesty and lies and secrets, and how it just consumed them, and like the harm that it created rippled throughout their lives in different ways. And so that wasn't what I wanted, because overall my ultimate goal is to function from a space of joy and happiness. And you can't have joy and happiness if you've got yuck mucky in the waters, whether it's guilt or shame or hatred or anger or rage. And so 16, 17, I decided that it's just time to be honest. And so I also struggled at that time having friends that were doing crime. Like, this breaking into houses stuff was horrendous to me. Like that's your safe space. And so for these people to be disrespecting people's safe space so profoundly, like, that is what bad people do. And they were good people. Like, they were my friends that I could actually, like, trust, and had no doubt they loved me. Like, none. And so how could they be, like, such good people and doing such bad things? And so I never really reconciled that until I heard about restorative justice. And it made sense in two different levels to me. One was just the idea that they weren't just the people breaking into houses. Like, they were more than that. And so the restorative justice process is creating spaces for them to be accountable to those bad choices, so they could shed those bad decisions and be the good people, if they chose to be accountable, that I knew them to be. The other part, especially in regards to burglaries, is the idea of someone breaking into my safe space, my home, is terrorizing. And so to be empowered to get to sit down face to face, and, like, instead of it being some kind of, like, scary, evil, horrible human being, I get to meet them. I get to, like, humanize them if I were the victim. And that's something that I personally would need, so I could meet them and ask them any questions I might have. And so on all these different, like, ways, I lived this life and just struggled with some of the things that restorative justice taught or answered or whatever. And so it just fit with me. So at 30 years old, I started translating, and I shifted into becoming a mediator for the Victim Offender Reconciliation Program. I did that for 2 years. I was a mediator, and then after that I became the program coordinator for 2 years, and then from there I became the director for 6. And there's stories all along the way, and so, like, tune in and subscribe to this blog, and you'll get to learn more and more about me and CCJ and restorative justice and my family, my friends, blah blah blah. Subscribe now, share with your friends. Thanks for watching.